So we're doing now the section 3, the module 3 question for 2022's Law Unit 1 paper. And we're asked to define the term omission to act and give two examples of omission to act. Can you guys explain what omission to act mean?
When you are supposed to do something,
Hmm.
but you don't do it, which leads to, yeah, what she said.
Okay, failure to perform one's duty. So when you have a moral or legal duty, either bounded by statute or some amount of contractual duty, that um yeah, so basically that, and you actually omit from doing said duty, right? That you are legally bound to. Okay, two examples. I give you multiple. I give you all examples. So that are the examples. Give me two. A duty to what? A duty to what? So I give you all the
Uh,
duties. Go ahead.
a citizen has a duty to report a car accident they are involved in. If they don't, that then they can be charged for that.
What would be an okay? Sure. Yeah. So we have that. Okay, lovely. So the good neighbor principle laid out in
And
the
sorry,
case. Go ahead.
Adam Marco.
We have other markers, a duty by virtue of holding a public office or by a profession, right? A professional office. Okay.
So I don't remember the name, but there is a case where the parents were supposed to feed the child and they didn't.
RV Gibbons and Proctor, duty via relationships, local parentis.
Yes.
Alright. Contractual duty RV Pitwood. Statutory duty RV Dyfam. Lovely. You guys have case, man. The thing is, no, the paper that we were looking before, the papers that we were looking at before, right, are considerably harder than these papers, right? They're considered harder than nowadays papers. Nowadays papers easy compared to them, right? Explain the term coincidence of actus. Oh my gosh, actus non facit nisi mensit rea. The coincidence of actus reus and mens rea in determining criminal liability for an offense. State two cases for examples of this coincidence. Go ahead. You guys can take this.
Sir, I can only remember one right now. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay, so the act and the intent must coincide. I am and DPP.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, um, the ex of Hayam was with a new woman, I believe, and she was not happy with this. She went to set fire to the mailbox of the new girlfriend or fiance's house when she was not there and she drove away. But the fire ended up spreading to the house in which the fiance's child was inside and the child died as a result.
Okay. So does that coincide with the actus reus and the mens rea? Does it?
Um, yes, no, it's,
Remember, okay, I'm a,
oh,
remember the mens rea, the mens rea, she wanted to scare Mrs. Brown out of the neighborhood, not to hurt anybody.
oh,
So,
so they did not coincide.
yeah,
My bad.
she never had malice of a, okay, technically she never had malice of a thought, but she got murdered anyways because it was oblique intent. Yeah, Tubby Millie versus the Queen. Tubby Millie versus the Queen is like one of the main cases for this, right? So you can use that. Somebody else raise your hand. You can go ahead. Tubby Millie v the Queen is lovely. You can use those cases, but we generally understand what it means to coincide. So if there is no act coinciding with the mens rea, then there can be no crime. There can be no liability, right? if there's no mens rea for the act, right, there can be no liability. So you're speaking about RV Dyson and those type of things, right? But the thing is, no, you can't use RV Dyson and those type of stuff, right? Because those don't have it coinciding. Those have mens rea, no actus reus, and then actus reus and no mens rea. You have to find cases where they coincide. That's what they ask for. But you'll understand the fact that if they don't coincide, there is no crime, unless they have strict liability. But apart from that, then it will hold true for the most part. And you just use some cases, and you need to use the cases and then tell us exactly now where the actus reus was done and when the mens rea coincided. You could even use larceny cases. Remember what happened with not Clutchak? There was a case in larceny, right? I think my brain has gone. There's a case in larceny that we could use where the man saw the bill on the ground and then he took it up. That's actus reus, right? But when he resolved to actually just take the money, the mens rea, the animus furandi, came into place. So you could use, that's why when I was doing the presentations, right, I did state that almost any case can be used. Almost any can be used to describe these, right? So I did state that. Where is that case? I'm trying to find that case. It is R.V. Thurborn, right? He saw the money on the ground, he took it up, that's sufficient asportation, that is the actus reus. And when he resolved to keep it, right, that is the mens rea. So you could use any case as long as you can clearly see it. R.V. Church, lovely. You could use R.V. Church as well. Alright. Pedro, a private security guard, goes to the home of his ex-wife Maria to see his 2-year-old son Blue. Was this the paper that I did? Oh, it looks like the paper that I did. I don't remember. Pedro is confronted by Maria's brother Sky, who dislikes Pedro very much. Maria snatches Blue as Sky begins to threaten Pedro with violence if he does not leave immediately. Pedro, fearing for his life, draws for his service revolver and points at Sky and fires a shot at him. The bullet misses Sky and hits Blue in his head, killing him instantly. Right? Using 2 decided cases to support your answer, discuss Pedro's liability for Blue's death. What's the first thing that we see? So we're seeing here that Pedro went to visit his son Blue, right? And he was confronted by Maria's brother. Maria's his ex-wife, right? Maria's brother Sky, right? And Sky immediately starts to threaten Pedro. So that is assault, right? That's the first count, assault. Alright? And then Pedro now threatened with violence, right? Well, threatened with violence, fearing for his life, that's where the assault comes in, draws his service revolver, right? Now we're deciding whether or not this is self defense, right? We have to now decide whether or not drawing this revolver is reasonable force. We have to decide that now. Is it reasonable force? Is it not? And then he points that Sky and fires a shot at him, right? So we have to see whether or not that firing now, whether or not the threatening with violence is a reasonable response, right? Well, using the service revolver, we're looking at whether or not using service revolver is a reasonable response to being threatened with violence from Sky, right? You now have to discuss whether or not that's a reasonable response, right? But now the bullet misses Sky and hits Blue. Now we have to look at transferred malice, right? So we have to look at those things, and transferred malice would not imply if there is self-defense. That's why you have to determine whether or not it's self-defense before you look at the transferred malice, right? So first we're looking at something like violence. So you could use something like a RV light or something like that, one of those cases for the assault, right? Pulling out the revolver, you could use like a RV Owino for the self-defense, determine whether or not it's a self-defense, right? For the transferred malice, you could use a RV Latimer, right? So you guys need to be able to discuss and analyze the case. So I drag multiple things out of that case. multiple. So we must use these things to discuss the liabilities of Blue's death, right? Using 2 decided cases, we must do so, right? So you need to use some cases to help you decide, and that is where you're gonna go use your IRAC method now. Look at what is happening. Look at the rules. We see assault, we see attempt at self-defense, and we see transferred malice. And we're gonna use 2 cases, right, to help decide, to help analyze the situation, and then we put a conclusion. All right. So question, I have a question here, right? Is the use of the service revolver as a response to Sky, is that warranted? Is that reasonable? Anyone, is that reasonable? Yes, no, maybe, kinda, probably. Nobody? Yes? Okay, so somebody say yes. Right? Anybody says no? So he was threatened with violence now, and he pulled out the gun. Remember that self-defense speaks about whether or not a reasonable man would do that, right? So some persons may argue that reasonable man. Okay, so some persons may argue that the reasonable man threatened and assaulted will take out the revolver, right? And some persons may argue that the reasonable man will not take out the revolver in the presence of a child. We don't know. You just need to explain and support the answer. You must discuss it. Based on your explanation, you'll get the marks. It's not who is wrong and who is right. The law is based off of arguments. Explain what you're saying. Right? Explain why you say it's self-defense. Explain why it is not if you say it's not self-defense. And now you must explain transferred malice. Malice was transferred from Sky to Blue when the bullet that was meant for Sky transfers to Blue. So the same intent that was made for Sky, right, was transferred to Blue because a mens rea thing, you know. Remember, transferred malice is under mens rea. Alright? So you need to talk about those things, and you should be able to do this question easily. So you could use a case for self-defense and a case for transferred malice. That's fine. I think a transferred malice case would be necessary. It is up to your discretion whether or not you want to use an assault case or a self-defense case. Go ahead.
Sir.
Go ahead.
We could use the case that you gave us with MD and something else. I don't quite remember. Yes, that case.
Mohan? You think we could use Mohan? I don't. The thing is, the Mohan is about conspiracy, not conspiracy, accessory to crime. You know, I don't think there are any accessories here. So I personally don't see how. Wait, it depends on which Mohan you're talking about, because the other Mohan. Hold on, which Mohan are we talking about? The accessory to crime Mohan, or the other Mohan? There are 2 Mohan. That's why I always put the years behind them, you know, because the years are important. It help me to distinguish between them properly. Alright. We have a different Mohan, you know. So the Mohan, you see the Mohan with all of those variables? That is for what you say now? That is for conspiracy, not conspiracy, accessory, right, to crimes. I don't see all 2 persons contributing, so I don't think it would be an accessory, right? The next Mohan is about the mens rea for attempt, right? So I don't think any of the Mohans could use. But there are plenty cases though that can be used. Alright? Plenty. So you just need to go back for those cases and use them, alright? So that is it.